You have to watch Spider-Man Homecoming. If you like the Marvel movies or any kind of superhero, or just any kind of good movie, if you like a good laugh, a good entertainment, then you have to watch Spider-Man Homecoming. But you already know it and you already watched it, so now let me tell you why I liked it so much. So let's start at the beginning. The movie starts after the events of the first Avengers movie, and I think it was the perfect choice for the bad guy's origin story. You could say that it's a cliché that Tony Stark pissed off another guy and he turned evil, and maybe it's an easy solution to reach back 5 movies earlier to figure out the backstory, but I think it worked great, because in Avengers, aliens try to conquer our planet. So the Battle of New York was such a big event that of course it should have an aftermath many years later too. And it was impossible with all those alien tech lying around that someone wouldn't use them to do bad things. So Birdman's origin story is not just believable, but we even feel that it was inevitable. And by this, Homecoming not just adds a new film to the franchise like Guardians 2 or Doctor Strange, but it successfully expands this universe. And not by adding new layers to it like the magic and new planets. It does this by making this universe deeper, showing us the little consequences of the big events we saw in previous movies.
The world's changing, boys. Time we change too.
I know in my video about the Guardians 2 I wasn't very optimistic about the quality of the current Marvel movies, but I have to say I'm all in for this whole franchise again. I know Homecoming has some flaws, and I have to mention Chris Stuckmann's review, because he listed those very well. But Homecoming still feels perfect for me, because I can just so easily forget and forgive those little flaws if the characters are done right. And Spider-Man in this movie is perfect, and I think it's mainly because the filmmakers could show us a new kind of conflict within the main character. Because this protagonist is a kid, he goes to high school, and he has ambitions that any normal kid would have. He wants to be popular and he wants the hottest girl in school. These are very honest and believable goals for a guy in his age, so we can relate to him for this. And the great thing in this film is to see how these ambitions confront with the sense of duty that Peter developed when he got his superpowers. And this conflict is so nicely built up. At first we just see that it's not easy for him to keep his achievements in secret, but he does that because he's a good kid. The stakes are a little higher when he has a chance to be in the center of attention in a party and to get closer to Liz, but he can't turn away from it to investigate the dangerous weapons. And finally he has to face the greatest dilemma. To choose from good or evil is not a choice at all, it would be boring. But here Peter has to choose between stopping a criminal and having a date with his dream girl. It's a perfect dilemma because whatever he chooses, he would lose the other opportunity. So this is a real choice. Chris Stuckmann mentioned the lack of real danger in this film. And it's true, but I wouldn't say it's a problem though. Because after Civil War, where we saw so much pain and sorrow and friends hurting each other, a little lighter film is exactly what we needed. And this lighter tone actually comes from the main hero's character, because Peter is just a kid, and he very much wants to be an Avenger and play with the big boys, but he isn't ready for that just yet. And this is the other big conflict in him, and it's great to see him going through this journey where at the end he has to realize this. And it's great that in this journey he makes mistakes all the time. He couldn't stop the ATM building to blow up, he put a bomb in his friend's pocket, he locked himself in a storage room, he tear the ferry in half, and even in the end, fighting against Birdman, he loses. At first I didn't like it that he could only stop the bad guy because he was lucky, but it actually works great that he's just a kid and he really isn't ready for all this. But he still does everything he can, and he never stops, so we can respect him for that. And I loved Michael Keaton and his character. Doing bad things for the family maybe is a cliché, but I think it's great that he wasn't some big evil who wanted to rule or destroy the world. He's a simple guy who's doing his shady business under the radar. And I love that Peter and him had a connection, and they even developed a special bond. And I think it's great that in a sense he was so much above Peter. He's older, more experienced, and he kicks Peter's ass every time. He was the perfect villain for the starting out Spider-Man. I had a little problem with the female lead though, and it was that Liz was just too hot. I can't blame the filmmakers and I don't want to complain, it was very nice to watch her in this film. I just couldn't believe that she would go out with Peter. And I thought she just made an evil joke on him when she said she would go with him to the homecoming. I'm actually very curious if you felt the same way or not. So please tell me in the comments. Now let's talk about the suit. It was another concern of Chris Stuckmann's that Spider-Man shouldn't turn into Iron Man. And with this talking to the suit, it became very similar. But I think it's more important to recognize the differences. Because Tony is a billionaire with a big ego.
Sir, there are still terabytes of calculations needed before an actual flight is a job.
Jarvis, sometimes you gotta run before you can walk.
And he always treated his suit as a tool, a servant, or a pet. And in the best cases, as a supporting partner. But the relationship between Peter and Karen is very different. He's very polite and respectful with the computer. He calls her suit lady and listens to her. At first it's because he doesn't know anything about the suit, but this vibe stays between them later on too when they get closer. Peter gives her a name and he relies on her help in the fights, and she even gives him relationship advices. I have to say it's a funny movie overall, but the biggest laugh exploded in the cinema at one of these relationship advices. You know which one I'm talking about. And I think it paints an interesting picture of our society, that a teenager connects to a computer easier, opens up to it, and tells the computer things that he would never tell another human being. But I agree, it was a good decision to take Karen out of the movie at one point. Any more maybe would have been too much, and it was important for Peter's character development to find his strength without the suit. And of course, Iron Man. It's great to see Tony in this new role as a mentor.
If you're nothing without this suit, then you shouldn't have it.
It's interesting for us and it's important to him, because that's how he can process everything that happened before. After all the mistakes and the pain, that's how he can get his confidence back and maybe move on. It's also great to see that the decision he made in Civil War played out for him well. He signed the Accords most of all to get Piper back, and I'm happy that he succeeded. This is the power of the Marvel movies. There are so much of them now, and it gives us the unique opportunity to see unusually big arcs of character development, and to get to know these characters more, and to get attached to them more. Tony was our first hero in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and I'm just glad, especially after Civil War, that we can see him happy. And I'm looking forward to see more of Tom Holland's Spider-Man. And really all I can say to the Marvel guys for this movie and for the whole universe they built up is thank you.